First things first, I'll stretch that back and pull the pin out from the spring, pop that to one side, take a large screwdriver. This screw is usually tight. This one was probably a little bit tighter than usual. There we have a bush. There's a brass bush or bronze bush that runs through there. Normally I mark that so I can put it back in exactly the same place it came out. It may make a difference to getting the focus of the adjustments correct. We've got a wavy washer under here. I'm looking at the state of that. I can't tell whether that's dirty or corroded or both. The plain washer, similarly, it's pretty dirty. I suspect corrosion, mostly because I found corrosion in the rest of the camera. Mostly in the shutter, it has to be said. Though some around the body. Right, so the prism. The prism can come out of the end. Two small screws here. Hold that into the rangefinder body and also serve as the adjustment for the vertical alignment. And there's rust coming out of the heads of those screws. Pop that prism to one side. Two screws here hold this mask on the front. I'm going to put this through the ultrasonic cleaner. If I didn't remove that mask, it would end up with all its paint missing, and then I wouldn't be pleased. A single screw on the back here holds the rear lens component in place. All of these screws are unusually tight, suggesting corrosion. Tap that to get that out and to come out. That's stuck in place. It's unusual. Let's give it a poke and a prod with a toothpick, see if I can loosen that up. Oh no, that's well stuck. Okay. That's exceptionally unusual, and I'm not sure what accounts for that. Oh, it's loose now. There's nothing there to see. That's our piece of glass loose anyway. So this all needs to be cleaned. It's going to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. But the first thing I want to do is just wipe away the grease from where the arm sat, because I don't need that contaminating the clean soapy water I'm cleaning this in. Right, let's pop that to one side. That's going through the clean. Right, now here we can see corrosion. See the spring here that holds the glass in place? There's obviously corrosion there. It's very localised, suggests the droplet sat on there at that point. It wasn't a generalised, yeah, and there's rust down here too. Okay, well, I'll take that arm off there, clean that up. I don't think there's a problem with the corrosion that I see. I don't think it's going to cause me an issue, but I do want this stripped so I can clean out the corrosion from underneath it, just to make it easy to do the adjustments. Right, so with the end of the arm off the end of the wooden block, so I'm not pressing down on that end, I've got to remove that adjustment screw there, or the locking screw rather, not the adjustment screw. And here's the pivot screw. Now I need that out too. That may be somewhat reluctant, since that one will never have been moved since the time the camera was assembled. See if I can get that loose. Yeah, it's coming. Reluctantly, because of the corrosion. Right. Yeah, you can certainly see the rust at that point. That arm will lift off now. So I've just got to clean up these surfaces. I'll take the spring out while I'm here just for safe keeping, really. If I can get it off. There we go. I'm just going to clean up this with a wire brush. Likewise the arm here. Just put a touch of synthetic grease on there when I put it back together, which will protect that against the atmosphere and so forth. Likewise the screw. And this piece can go into the ultrasonic cleaner. This screw, of course, is the adjustment screw. It's staked on, so it would never come loose. It's eccentric. It probably hasn't got a thread on it. It's probably like a rivet, really, with a screw head, a slotted head. Just put a bit of solvent around there. Just want to make sure that thing actually does move. Yeah, it does. You can see how much eccentric action that has there. That's your adjustment. That swings that arm in or out. That's quite a lot. So the glass, of course, I need to clean on there. It's much dirtier now than when I started because I've managed to get greasy fingers all over it. This piece, just attack that with the wire brush to remove any corrosion. The adjustment at the tip of the arm, that's for adjusting the close focus position. It changes the angle of this plate as it contacts the post on the top of the camera that's pulled forward by the focus mechanism, and that effectively changes, I suppose you'd say, it changes the effective acting length of this lever, and so it will move the rangefinder or swing the arm a greater distance or a lesser distance as you work through the range from one end of the focus scale to the other. And this screw here with the corrosion on it, this was our pivot screw. It's a little bit crusty. Just scrape that rubbish off there. Some of the arm, of course, was painted, but surfaces like this were never painted because they're trapped underneath, and the moisture's got in there, and that's caused that to rust. That'll be okay. That's all I need it to do. I just need to get that pivot to work smoothly. And I will reassemble that right now, I think. Clean those components. And we never find everything I want all in the same place at the same time. It's one of those rules of nature. Right. There's the arm. A little bit of grease through the pivot point there. Oh, I can run some through there, I suppose. Oops, and help if I put it on the right way up. It'll even help it fit. That's quite a neat fit on that rivet, or screw rather. There's no slop there to speak of. That's good. Alright, we'll do the pivot screw up tight. The adjustment screw should swing the arm backwards and forwards smoothly, it does. And the lock screw goes through there. Because we've got no idea where this arm began its life. But we'll say there. It's about midpoint. That's that back together. I've got to clean the glass there and put the spring back in position. Hooking the spring in is sometimes a little bit entertaining. It's one of those jobs you only need 3 hands and 4 pairs of tweezers to achieve. It's the spring back in place. I'll put this in the ultrasonic cleaner while I'm cleaning the other parts. Just clean that surface. There's something sticking on there. That seems to be fine. Right, a wipe of molybdenum paste. And some on the top surface, very little on the top surface. And the brass bush or bronze bush, I'll put that in there, line that up with my mark that I've made previously. That's good to go. But I need to clean the glass in this because it's quite hazy at the moment. So domestic glass cleaner to the fore. Clean the outside surface first, because it's flat, it's easy to see and judge by reflected light whether I've got that clean or not. And the inside surface is quite heavily concave. It's much harder to judge by looking at that surface, but you can judge from the front by transmitted light whether you've got that thing clean. That looks good. The eyepiece glass, of course that was reluctant to come out. I don't know why. This piece of glass is convex on one face and pretty much flat on the other face. It might be very slightly concave, close enough to flat that you won't go wrong. Okay, let's have a look at that. That looks good. And I have my rangefinder body back from the ultrasonic cleaner. The rear eyepiece lens goes in concave side inwards, flat side outwards. That's retained with this bracket and one small nickel plated screw. The mask on the front, held in with two black painted screws. It's not uncommon for the paint to be chipped on those screws or even missing, particularly if someone's been at it with a screwdriver and not much care and attention. Just going to make sure this is square with the rangefinder, and most importantly that mask doesn't sit down below the level of the platform here, because that's where the arm moves. That's good. I can put the arm onto the rangefinder now, since we have that all ready to go. Put a wipe of molybdenum paste on the top surface here where that wavy wash is going to run. Put that in place. Put our plain washer in place. Put the screw through. Run that home, do it up tight, check that the arm moves freely, and it does. And the spring. Normally I swing the rangefinder out so the spring's hanging and I can get that pin through the end of the spring. Stretch the spring out into place, make sure the spring is centered into that pin, and there we have that all working correctly. And the rangefinder now just lacks the prism for the end. Only two faces of the prism can be cleaned. The front surface there and the one down inside the tube. This surface is covered in black paint, and that black paint very probably covers silvering. Don't remove the black paint, you won't like the answer. You can usually get to the inside surface well enough, swirling a cotton bud down inside that tube. Below that to remove any dust, and that goes back on the rangefinder. We have our two small screws. Alright, that's it. Now I've just got to check for alignment. My vertical alignment is probably miles out, because I can see that the angle of that prism is anything but level, so I'll just square that up slightly by adjusting the relative position of those two screws. And I'll peer out the window and see how I did. my moving image is too high, which means I need to slacken the front screw, tighten the rear screw. It's still too high, so more's wanted. Closing in on it. So I just want to get this approximately correct. Final adjustment will be made with this on the camera body. That's pretty good. And it's coming back beyond infinity. So I know that I need to adjust this screw so that when the arm is relaxed against the body, that the images align at infinity, which is there. So that's ready to go on the camera body. That's clean, tidy, the adjustments work, and it's ready to be fixed to the top of the camera. So I need 2 screws. A wipe of molybdenum paste that little lever on the tip of the arm, just to make sure that that continues to run smoothly. A little touch of lacquer on here, it's just cheap nail varnish. Don't use your wife's, she won't like it. It goes in place on the top of the body. Make sure this is set to infinity. Make sure that the tip of the arm here is sitting in front of the screw here, not sitting on top of it. Otherwise you'll bend the arm when you do the screws up, which is a nuisance. Drop 1 screw down into the hole. With luck it goes straight in, and then you can do it up. Drop the 2nd screw down, and with luck that falls directly into place too, and you can do it up. Now what I normally do is I normally hold my finger against the front of the rangefinder, pulling it back, making sure it's square with the camera body. Do my 2 screws up tight. The lacquer will stop that from being able to shift on the body if the camera receives a shock. In other words, if it's been dropped. I'll just check my alignment by looking out the window and then make adjustments as required. Vertical alignment's pretty good. Horizontal alignment's out. I need to allow my rangefinder arm here to move forward slightly from there. That'll be a good place to start. So now my images come together at infinity. Probably need to just shift that slightly so that they lift off as soon as I move the focus scale ring away from the infinity position. The images should start to diverge. And I get the impression that I need a little bit more adjustment for my infinity stop. And tiny. The adjustments required are only slight. It can be awkward getting it correct. It's easy to go too far and then have to try and back it up. And if you do make an adjustment to the vertical position, it almost always shifts your horizontal position very slightly too. Seems pretty good. I'll lock the lock screw. So my infinity images are aligned well. The vertical alignment is good. I need to check my close focus end of the scale and see if that looks appropriate. And if it does, move on.